All right, we are live. Well, good morning, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Let's see, make sure everything's going on. Okay, see? Frozen out there.
Well, maybe it's okay on theirs and it's just ours on that one.
I don't want it in the broadcast. I don't want to lose the. Maybe just. Apologies, everyone. Okay, you know what? Let's just do this. I mean, we'll see about the internet. If there's internet connections or technical difficulties, we'll probably figure it out from there. And if worse comes over to the Crew Tube, CRUE Tube, and that's probably what we're going to probably do another broadcast stream should things go down. So I want to welcome everyone this Tuesday morning. I just flew into Midland, and first thing out of the gate after getting off the plane, we decided to get behind the camera, get behind the mic, and kind of have a conversation right now, kind of about the obviously right now a hot topic, a hot subject right now in the oil and gas industry. I don't care if you're in Canada, I don't care if you're in Texas or North Dakota. It's something that's everyone's seeing on LinkedIn, and the importance of the position of the Texas Railroad Commissioner. And last week I had Tom Slocum on, and coming into Midland, I wanted to grab a little bit of Sarah Stogner's time, who's also was a Republican candidate for the Texas Railroad Commission. And as we're beginning, obviously this is an open forum, and we're hoping that the Wi-Fi will allow us to field questions. And this is kind of an open conversation. We want to answer questions from you out there. This really isn't an interview. This is just kind of let's have a conversation. Whoever wants to chime in and ask questions, and we'll see what we can do to answer them. So let's see what's going on. So we have audio. Okay, audio is working. Thanks, John, for checking in. We got Frederick Clavinus working. Audio is good. Video lagging. Yes, that's what we're kind of worried about, the video lagging.
Guys are going to have to go over to TikTok and watch it on TikTok.
Yeah, you might have to do that. What do you think? Let's go with it.
You want me to hotspot it?
Can we try that?
Yep. I'm using my phone, though. I'd have to go get my other phone.
Could this hotspot?
Let's
or does it have to be a phone? All right, everyone, please bear with us. That's why we went a little bit early. We went a little bit early to test the technology, and I think it's just the roots of this building, of the Midland Country Club, with this fire behind us and this the dining room down here, which is what's going on right now. So we're going to test some things out and try to get the best video quality for everyone out there right now. But in the meantime, this has been an exciting little campaign season for Sarah stepped out right now, so I'm just going to try to fill the void by just talking right now. Love being in Midland right now. How's the video right now, everyone? Is it good? Is it lagging still? Okay, good conversations, good comments. Okay, so I'm just going to start talking. So this morning, woke up, 4 a.m., went to the airport, and lo and behold, flying out here, I ran to a good old buddy of mine, Scott Keller, and then ran into old Marty Unrein, and then ran into Mark Noel, and then I landed over here and run into Brandon Pye. So Midland right now is being infiltrated with some Houston folks, and I believe it's the AAD Operators Forum. Okay, so it's good again. So it's good. That's good to hear. Okay. Much better. Well, I'm hoping it stays that way, James. Sarah stepped out right now, so we're going to kind of wait for her to return. But before we ask questions, because I can't answer any questions. But actually, I probably could answer questions, but it's going to be a lot of bogus BS. That's kind of how I do things. I wing it. All right, it's better. We got, okay, good feedback. Okay, so the technology is not good because someone chimed in on TikTok. I guess it's because of the products that you're using have oil in them. So that's why the products aren't working. That's why technology is not working. Wi-Fi is not working because Wi-Fi apparently has oil in it per TikTok user. So I'm fine with that. Shalom. Shalom, House of Torah. Okay, we're good to go. I think we got some good.
You got it?
I think it's
because
good
I
right
went
now.
and got it. We don't need it.
That's how it works.
Okay.
Yes, probably when you sit down though, it's probably gonna switch off.
Okay.
So everyone, good morning for wherever you're tuning in from right now. I am sitting here with the Texas Railroad Commissioner candidate, Republican candidate, Sarah Stogner, which is and Sarah, look, this is the first time you know you're kind of meeting face to face and having a conversation right now. And so the whole point of this is kind of it's not a podcast, it's not really an interview, it's not a this is just kind of an introduction, kind of I want to get to kind of know you, and I'm sure the people do as well, just a little bit. And then we just want to open it up to kind of have a lot of Q&A because there are a lot of people with questions out there because what's going on right now is so important. And I'm not sure if it's the timing of everything, but that blowout that's happening currently, that is all over LinkedIn, that's all over your page, it's all over Twitter right now. I think that highlights the necessity of a change.
Yeah, I couldn't
if
agree
that
more.
makes sense. So so let's get this kicked off. So Sarah, thank you for joining me, and thanks for hosting me at the Best in the West, at the Midland Country Club, and we're sitting cozy next to this fire on this cool Midland morning. So Sarah, why don't you kind of give us kind of a little bit of background about yourself and what kind of prompted you to, I guess, what was the catalyst for you to kind of launch into this the candidacy,
Yeah.
the race?
Yeah, thanks. So I am an oil and gas lawyer.
Okay.
For the past 13 years, I have represented primarily operators
Okay.
in well control insurance coverage. So when you drill wells and you have wells, you have blowout insurance, or it's called operator's extra expense.
Okay.
And when something really bad happens, insurance companies, like most businesses, will say, okay, is it cheaper for us to pay this claim or hire lawyers and try to fight about it? And so I represented operators in trying to get paid on their insurance. So I represent operators and then suing insurance companies primarily.
That's
and then
good.
what the practice that went along with that was advising various energy industry entities. So operators, midstream companies, service companies in their master service agreements, risk management, indemnities, all of that kinds of stuff.
That's huge.
And so, right, the goal of contracts has been traditionally to agree on things ahead of time so that you don't fight about things later.
Right.
And unfortunately, it's really been distorted by lawyers. And I think we're at the point where we've got technology, we've got data. We don't have to be fighting about these things that we're fighting about. But there's people in power who have an incentive of keeping things the same way. Okay,
so keeping things archaic a little bit, not integrating the technology or the data that we were talking about before we went live.
Right. And so the event or the reason that I'm running is because this summer I moved out onto a cattle ranch in Ward and Crane counties, and there was a blowout of a plugged and abandoned well. And it took them 12 weeks to replug that well.
Was that the red bucket?
That was the red bucket.
So that's kind of when you came on my radar.
Yeah.
Like, it was one of those things where it's like, there was a lot of attention towards this. And, historically, it's kind of like, man, what are you doing? You can't have a camera on location, all that stuff. But like, I really kind of dug how you're like, you know what? I'm going to do a grassroots thing. I'm going to get after it. I'm going to voice what's going on out here. And I want it fixed. I mean, it's your land.
Right. Well, so, my big thing is there's so many good oil and gas companies out there, right? I have a lot of operator clients that are really good operators.
Yes.
And so I'm used to them wanting to do the right thing, right? I've represented operators in blowouts. I've seen how you're supposed to run an incident command. I've seen the decisions that you make to make sure that you're protecting groundwater.
Right.
And what I saw was years and years and years of Chevron, because it was a major, getting away with things that others can't get away with.
Okay.
And essentially the Railroad Commission is so overworked and understaffed that they take whatever the operators tell them and essentially are like,
as truth.
Yeah, they're like, okay, because we expect that people aren't going to lie.
Yeah, whenever you're having a conversation with someone, you expect them to be truthful versus being dishonest.
Right.
Yeah.
And the problem is that as Republicans, as those of us that value private property rights, that value capitalism, crony capitalism is the worst of the worst, because To the outsiders, it looks like it's capitalism, but it's not.
So can you go into kind of like, speaking about this, crony capitalism, can kind of give an example about that?
Yeah.
How about that? Because right now during this election, all stuff, you're hearing a lot of buzzwords. You're hearing a lot of political buzzwords. You hear a lot of this, a lot of that. So what is crony capitalism?
Yeah, it's pay to play, right? It's big operators like Chevron going and sponsoring stadiums and donating to children's charities and pretending to be a good steward of the community. And in reality, they're knowingly polluting our groundwater and aquifers in West Texas. And for years, it was, oh, who cares? It's, it's desert. It's ugly.
It's no one sees it anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I care.
Yeah.
Right. And those that have drink from these aquifers. If you live in West Texas, you are dependent on the water aquifers. And so I see ranchers, I see hardworking men and women who are in the oil field every day and proud to be in the oil field, who are being lied to and misled by bad corporate actors and by career-long politicians.
So, the first question, and this is going to be how it's going to be. It's going to be kind of split up in conversation and questions as they come in, because there's a lot of questions. The first question that Daryl Huddleston asked is, when is the RRC candidate debate?
Yeah, I don't know.
This has been the topic on Twitter, on LinkedIn for the past 2-3 weeks now. It's when is the debate?
I don't know. They're still trying to get one together.
Okay.
I talked yesterday, and I know that the Association of Drilling Engineers and the directional drilling guys are wanting a debate. I have been invited. The Permian Basin Association of Pipeliners is going to have a candidate forum that we're invited to. I think it's sometime in February.
Okay.
And I have had on my to-do list, I need to get a page on my website that has a calendar, of like, here's the upcoming
appearances or discussions, or come meet me here for coffee or whatever. Yeah.
Right. And I've been a little busy. So.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But yes, it's on my to-do list. And look, I'm really accessible, right? People can direct message me. I want to hear from people. I want to talk to people. I want to hear what their pain points are. I want to hear what they're proud of. I would love some good industry news, right? Like, hey, we just did this thing with technology, or look at where we're, mining Bitcoin now instead of flaring, right? There's all kinds of this stuff going on. And so I'm hopeful that we'll have some good news soon. But
So that is something to definitely look out for, and that's a great point. I think this debate that's been talked about enough, I think it's one of those things like, it's going to be here, it's going to be here, it's going to happen, and if you show up to debate. If not, that's fine. It's just more exposure for those that show up.
Right, and I promise I will live stream it on TikTok.
That's it. So TikTok, and where do you find your TikTok?
At the Unicorn Lawyer.
Unicorn Lawyer. All right, we have another question right here from Cody. Cody Godsell, he says, do you really believe it is knowingly or are they blissfully unaware of what's going on?
I thought that they were blissfully unaware in the beginning, but I have since found documents, modern day documents, that say Chevron's the owner of the surface, for example.
Okay.
Well, Chevron's not the owner of the surface. And why does that matter? Well, because under Rule 13 of statewide rules, when you go to plug a well, you have to notify the landowner that you're plugging the well.
Okay.
So Chevron had, over the course of the past, what is it now, January, over the past 18 months, 4 different wells that spewed water on the surface of the ranch.
Okay.
They blew out. They had uncontrolled flows, as that term is defined in well-controlled insurance policies, at least.
Mm-hmm.
And so they didn't tell the landowner about any of them. They didn't tell the Railroad Commission about a couple of them. And on the ones they did, they blatantly lied, because we have other documents, internal documents that have now been shared with us from people who want to help, proving that they were lying.
Something's going on. Okay. All right. So we have love you, Scott. Scott. Don't need water, you can just drink Bronco Love. Okay. All right. All right, we have someone chiming in, the slandering of Chevron or any other. And that's the thing. These are, look, I'm not going to field anything. These are, unless it's, derogatory, insulting or anything like that. But these, I want to bring up what people are talking about right now. So this is the statement of the slandering of Chevron or any other company by name, whether it's intentional or not, is not what I'd expect from a candidate, and particularly a lawyer.
I know, isn't that, but this is the thing, right? Lawyers are helping these companies. And I understand that, right? We are taught as lawyers, we don't call names, and we don't.
Right.
We do that in the courtroom. And it's all kind of this chess game of, well, I'm sorry, but screw that. It's not working. And when you have large corporate actors, they will tie you up in litigation for 10 or 20 years. They will spend millions of dollars on attorneys, and they will do everything in their power to hide the truth.
Right.
And I'm tired of it. And our court systems are failing us. The legal process is failing us. When only the wealthiest in society can afford to test their soil or to hire lawyers to prove the truth, the system's broken.
Something's going on. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. And this is actually a great way to kind of start off. I think a 90s random consultant had I think this is a good way to start off. We start kind of getting the nitty gritty of stuff, and I don't want to bypass on what you want to accomplish should you be elected. So, 90s random consultant off of Twitter said, "I'm a Houston oil boy. I'll leave that to my proxy, Tejano Brown. But seriously, how do you affect change by winning this election?" So there's a couple questions here. The first one is, how do you affect change by winning this election?
You probably don't.
Okay.
But I can give transparency.
Okay.
I'm one of 3, right?
Okay.
So if I get elected, I will be one of 3 commissioners. And you're right, it takes 2 out of 3 to vote on anything, right? But every single time I can bring the discussion that I'm bringing now, the transparency that I'm bringing now, and call out the bad actors.
Okay.
And I'm prepared to do that.
So if there's 2 others, I mean, how do you plan? I'm assuming that they're is that up for election as well, those 2 others?
No. So every 2 years, it's a 6-year term.
Yep.
And every 2 years, one of the spots is up. So in 2 years, it will be Christy Craddock. And then in another 2 years, it'll be Jim Wright's spot. And then in another 2 years, it'll be the seat again.
So coming into this, and you're working with 2 people that have held office for 2 to 4 years, whatever, and also, so how are you planning, I guess, work with them, I guess, when you're saying it's not transparent now? So is it one of those things you're going to kind of bring them on board, or just are you just going to call being a lawyer?
Yeah,
Right.
I think Christy Craddock is corrupt.
Okay.
I think her family is corrupt. They have been lining their pockets for years. They've made hundreds of millions of dollars in the oil and gas industry while being public servants. And I think that Wayne has been a pawn in that scheme. I think Jim, there's hope. He is an industry guy. He was a saltwater disposal guy. He has some of his own skeletons, right? He got some saltwater disposal slaps on the wrist and decided to run. So I think that there's hope if we can get Christy out, or her decide that she should not seek re-election because the beatings will continue of public information. Right. I'm hopeful that we can get meaningful change. And Tom Craddock needs to go. He's in charge of the Natural Resources Committee statewide, which is the one that drafts the legislation that the regulators at the Railroad Commission then oversee. So
before this incident on your, have you ever thought about a political career or getting into politics at all?
Hate it.
Really?
Yeah, never. And this is it. If the Craddocks would step down, I'd withdraw from the race.
Really?
That's how. Yeah.
Okay.
That's how passionate.
So this is one of those things where it's like, I don't want to get into politics. I don't like politics, but I have to do something. Okay. All right. So I dig that. So real quick, why don't you discuss? Then we're going to kind of open up the questions. Tell us, if I was in an elevator with you and all that stuff, tell me your platform and kind of what you want to do when you're in office, besides the transparency side of things. And you can talk about the technology and data that you brought up and all that, if you want.
Yeah.
So your answer.
Yeah.
My question, your answer.
Right. So I want to bring an unbiased, educated voice to a very important agency.
Okay.
Because they have exclusive jurisdiction to regulate almost everything about oil and gas in the state of Texas. And we have very real issues. We've got seismic issues. We've got flaring issues.
Seismic issues big lately
We've
out
got
here,
groundwater issues. And the lack of leadership, and let's assume there's not corruption. Okay. Then what explains the stupidity that we see from our elected officials? Our grid is not fixed, right? And let's look at that. The Railroad Commission, they don't have jurisdiction over the entire grid. They have jurisdiction over intrastate pipelines and processing facilities.
Okay.
So their role is making sure that the facilities, the midstream guys that they regulate, have mechanical integrity and are capable of withstanding weatherization issues.
Okay.
So that it can then go to the downstream guys where, and that's the interaction between ERCOT and the Railroad Commission. So I can't do anything about ERCOT, but I can say we got to be intellectually honest about the condition of our midstream.
That way you can address it properly.
That we can address it. And how do you do that? Well, you need a little bit of teeth to hold the bad actors accountable.
Okay.
And you do a better job of promoting the good guys and letting people with technology, data, non-lawyers, non-politicians who have very real answers to these incredibly difficult questions.
Right.
We let them actually participate and make decisions.
Be part of the discussion.
And be part of the change.
Okay.
And right now it's like a facade, right? We have these great conferences, oil and technology and leading the innovation. And then people call me and they're like, why can't I get anyone to implement my in situ soil remediation? I'm like, because no one makes them clean up the spills. They dump caliche on top of it, out of sight, out of mind. Until you have enforcement of the rules that are on the books,
yes,
none of that matters because there's no incentive.
Okay. All right. So now what I would like to do, I'd like to open up to questions and all that stuff. So let's. I'm going to scroll up right now to some of the questions that we previously missed. Do you have anything to chime right now, or you just want to just go with it?
Yeah, no, let's go.
Let's just go with it. Okay.
People are tired of hearing me speak, I'm sure.
Yeah. That's not what you want. No. You have a couple more months on the campaign trail.
But
so.
I don't need to fill dead space. I can wait, and I want to answer things that people are actually curious about.
All right. Will you stay transparent on social media once elected? That's actually a good question because the thing what's interesting about this campaign, which I'm seeing now, is the power of social media and the platforms that the candidates are using. Whether it's you, whether it's Tom, whether it's Sarge, whether it's whoever else, like people are utilizing social media. You know what I mean? And you are very vocal and you're very transparent on social media. So is this going to change should you be elected?
No, not unless it's somehow breaking a law that I don't know about.
Okay. All right.
No, aren't you guys looking? I think EFT on Twitter should be looking forward to like my daily live tweets about the stupid stuff that I hear inside at Austin, right? Like, how great. Look at this guy that's been dumping into the Colorado River without consequences. Who enjoys fishing? I do. Who's going to be mad when their fish are all dead and they have,
Yeah.
It's
you don't want that behind the point. So we have Daryl Huddleston says, how is the conflict of interest going to be addressed if you get elected? Your clients are also regulated by a railroad commission.
Yeah, well, I mean, if I get elected, I can't be their lawyer anymore.
Yeah, okay. All right. So it'd be the office over the okay. All right. That's all right. So we got I don't know. Okay, all right. So anyway, if anyone has any other questions, I think there's kind of a lag here. So okay, so how has the campaign, and we're gonna wait to field some more questions as they come in. So there's kind of a lag between what we're talking about and when the questions pop up. So how has the campaign been when it's kind of like meeting with people or meeting with different groups or meeting with landowners, meeting with ranchers and all that stuff? I mean, how's that process been for you?
I mean, I'm very social, right? I'm an extrovert. So I enjoy meeting people and talking about these issues. I've been nerding out on them for years for fun.
Right.
So my life hasn't changed all that much. And I don't have a campaign manager. It's just me. So it's just a continuation of my life. It's exciting because it feels like it's more, I have a potential to actually effectuate some change. And even if I don't win, I hope that I have given people the courage to have some difficult conversations across all areas of their life.
That should be had.
And that I continue to help people that are contacting me daily that are like, I love you, I support you, but I can't come out and say it or I'm going to get blacklisted from the industry.
Right.
You're pissing people off. You're not pissing me off, right? I love it. But, I think it's going to be over the next few years as these boomers that, are retiring and those of us that are in our 30s and 40s start taking over positions of power, that we're going to continue to see a shift of transparency and social media. And I'm hopeful that in 10 years, parties won't really matter, right? Like everything is so polarized. And for the first time in history, because of social media, people can't go into one room and tell ranchers one thing and then go into another room and tell
speak from both sides of their mouths. Right.
Right.
Because people will call them out.
Yeah. And so instead, what's happened from my perception, is that our politicians, they used to just go into one room, say one thing, and then say another in another room. That's changing. So now they just really don't say anything. They just kind of fluff everything.
They're just waiting for someone to talk potentially. All right. So Mark chimed in. So is the root cause a lack of governing documents or rules, or is it more of an enforcement issue?
I would say it's 95% an enforcement issue, but there are some rules that need to change, right? And they definitely need to be, the rules need to be enforced as written. A well that's temporarily abandoned should not be sitting for 30 years. Rotting.
Okay, yeah, okay.
That's not temporarily abandoned. And right now, under the rules, you have to have an engineer or a geologist perform a mechanical integrity test and sign off that in their professional opinion that they believe that there's a viable use for that wellbore in the future. And I'm, for most of these, there probably isn't.
It seems
so
like
things like that.
It seems like such an undergoing to go into this office or this position and really kind of bring it to the 21st century, 2022. Right. That is one of those things that will probably be a step change, will probably be a behavioral change to get people on board. Are you ready for that long bureaucratic game?
Mm-hmm. I am.
Okay, that's no questions. It's quick and easy. So we get questions from y'all.
I'm committed, right? I'm in it. So I'm also committed to not seeking other office after this.
So this is kind of you just want to go in there and kind of fix kind of what you're seeing is wrong.
Yeah.
And that's it. So that's why you're passionate about this. You're not a career politician. You just kind of want to fix what's going on, and you're seeing a lot of it. Okay. So another question we have here from Anthony Gillian is, how do you plan on addressing the current water disposal issue? Well, what is that issue out there, if you don't mind, and talk about that?
So for those that are not familiar, in the Permian Basin alone, I think we're at about 15 million barrels per day of water that's being extracted from one zone and injected into other zones, essentially.
Okay.
Right? So, and bear with me here, but for those that aren't familiar in general with the industry, historically, these traditional wells are vertical wells that go down to 3,000 feet,
okay.
Right? Like I like to tell people, think of it as a very much layered cake with icing and different types of cakes, right? And you stick a straw in there, and historically, that oil, you'd have enough pressure that you'd stick your straw in, and oil, gas, and water would come up the straw. And for every barrel of oil you get 6 or 7 barrels of water. Okay. Well, so as that water comes up, it was then re-injected into that same formation out here most of the time to water flood it, right? So you remove it, you inject it into the same formation. It helps sweep the oil and gas, and it helps keep that particular layer of cake at about the same pressure that it was at. Right. So now with the shale revolution, and everyone has kind of villainized fracking, but it's not fracking that's causing the problems, the vast majority of problems, right? If you have good casing and you have good cement, you have mechanical integrity in your well, then it can withhold the frack. What the frack does, right, is it opens up that formation and lets the water and hydrocarbons flow. The difference is you still get back 6 to 7 barrels of water, but you can't re-inject it into that same zone. So it has to go into a different zone. So what we're seeing with earthquakes, what we're seeing with some of these issues is you've got all of this water coming out of one zone, and we're having to find places to put it.
Put it back,
And we're not replenishing it in that zone. And we've got, it's physics. And my understanding from the geologists and the engineers out there is that it's not a fracking problem. It's not even necessarily a saltwater disposal problem. It is a life cycle management problem. And we need to be intellectually honest and come up with clever engineering ways to fix it. And we've got the technology to filter water, right, to recycle water. It's expensive. What makes it less expensive? Scale. Other people competing, right? So it's a cart and a horse thing. And I am confident that those in the industry can tackle our water management problem out here. It's just something we hadn't thought about. We've always been really concentrated about getting and intentional about getting the oil and gas out as efficiently as possible. And the water was always kind of an afterthought. And it's
like a byproduct.
Yeah, it can't be an afterthought anymore.
Okay. All right. So you plan. So How do you plan on addressing the current water disposal issue? Is that kind of?
Yeah, so I don't know exactly,
Okay.
honestly, but I know that there's lots of experts out there with lots of ideas. So my
Is meet with
plan
them.
is
Meet with people that are smarter than you and just kind of get ideas from them.
Yeah.
Which, okay.
And how would operators like to handle it, right? Like if you live in Midland and you're feeling these earthquakes, you live on the northwest side of town. I have friends over there that have cracks in their drywall from earthquakes from a couple weeks ago.
There's been a lot going on. I didn't even know about that.
So people, if you ask people 6 months ago, and they're like, it's not that big of a deal. Well, now we've got petroleum engineers in Midland who have drywall cracks.
So now it's a big deal.
It's getting to be a big deal.
I mean, it seems like it's getting more attention, at least, that people are talking about it more. So we have John asking a question. Do you believe the energy transition is imminent, or do you believe in oil and gas as your primary energy source far into the future?
I don't think those are mutually exclusive.
No, I don't. But that's your question. So, sorry. That's a different discussion.
Right? Yes, I believe in energy transition. I think again, intellectual honesty, but nothing's going to happen overnight.
No.
And we have to look at it. Nothing is truly clean, right? Windmills, you have costs and benefits. You need fuels. You use fiberglass. You're using lubrication, right? Solar panels, it takes surface mining. It's heavy mineral, earth mineral rich.
Absolutely.
Lithium in batteries. So all of that's part of it. What I want to do is I want to have a whole energy approach to ensure that we are a power hub of power here in Texas. In West Texas right now, we generate too much power. Our grid isn't ready for us, right? We could be killing it with solar, wind, and natural gas. It doesn't have to be one or the other.
I like that energy thing because you're right. I mean, in this day and age, everything's, this side or this side, whether it's Chick-fil-A, McDonald's, mask, no mask, Republican, Democrat, fossil fuels, renewables, but it's energy. Right. That side is frustrating because it's like, man, we're all energy. Those are the conversations we need to be sitting at the table with. This isn't us versus you. We're providing energy to the people. So let's engage in those conversations. Right. And let's continue them.
Right. Like maybe the best solution is everyone in West Texas at their house has a small turbine on their fence and a couple solar panels. And that's where you lose it in transmission and storage.
Right.
Again, intellectually honest, coal is the easiest form of power to store. It's the cheapest, but it's not the best. Natural gas burns wonderfully clean, yet we're wasting billions of BTUs just letting it vent, right? So, I'm confident again that if we get rid of the political rhetoric, and when anyone who tells us something, we ask them, what do they have to gain from giving me this information? And suddenly things start to become
You start
clearer.
kind of connecting the dots and all that stuff. So, all right. So we have someone, I don't know who this is. Do you own any stock in oil and gas assets? Is that allowed in the position if you win?
I have a Robinhood account.
Okay.
In fact, I was joking that I own 1 point something of Chevron stock this morning because I bought it in the down. I bought several energy stocks in the downturn in April. And so, I own a nominal amount. But no, I don't own any working interests. I don't have any royalties. And
so pretty much an average individual investor, pretty much. Okay. Yeah. All right. I dig it. All right.
And yes, they are. And that's the problem, right? If you go Google Tom Craddock Mineral Holdings. And last I looked, it was at about 180 different interests across the state. So what happens is these politicians get overriding royalty interests, or that has no sort of expense obligations, or they'll get a working interest, which on paper means that they are part owner in that well and are supposed to pay their proportionate share of the costs associated with that well. But who's auditing that? So when you've got a friend that's got an operating company and you're a 5% non-operating working interest owner and they send you your jib that month, if they don't make you pay it, who's going to know if you're paying it? And then it essentially becomes an overriding royalty interest.
Okay, all right. So we have quite a question here from Lee Munns. Sarah, as a staunch Republican, I am all about capitalism, but I love the environment to be able to drink, hunt, and fish. You are correct. There is a point where the two have to merge, and now is the time. The old guard does not want this, but it must happen. How will you bring the parties to the table and chart the new course? That's a great question.
Yeah, and I think the best I can do is continue to have these open and honest conversations, continue to invite critics, right? That say, oh, I'm naysayers, right? Like, please, I don't know, it's a basic fundamental tenet that I grew up with. Like, don't complain about something if you don't have a proposed solution.
Amen to that.
Right? And so, yeah, I'm frustrated. And I've got some solutions that I'd love to talk about. But in reality, it's a 3-person commission. One has no power, essentially. And we saw that with Ryan Sitton, right? He did what he could. He wrote a really scathing report on flaring in the state, and then he was politically executed. So,
but I do appreciate how, that you want to bring in people that probably might know more about something, and learn from them and kind of engage in those discussions. Because I think at this time it's so crucial to have those conversations across the table.
Right.
It's so crucial to have that. So Daryl chimes in with Daryl Polson says, how will the Railroad Commission direct using produced water in the fracturing process?
Okay, say it again. How will the Railroad Commission
direct using produced water in the fracturing process? Hold on, wait. I think he.
Oh, like in other words, are they going to mandate recycling to not
How will the Railroad Commission address the use of limited freshwater resources in the fracturing process?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I'll be brutally honest, I don't think we should be using fresh water in wells.
Okay.
We should be using produced water that can be, it can be filtered out to be clean enough,
right,
for not very much money.
Okay.
What I'm told is like 5 to 10 cents a barrel.
Okay.
And so now, how are the rules? I don't know, right? Like, I do need to figure out exactly, is that even possible? And if it's not, then you work to have the rules corrected. And that's a legislative, right? So the legislature gives you, here's what you have to do. And then the regulators say, here's our regulations that we have the authority to enact in accordance with the regulation as it's been provided. Perfect example, we still don't have, are you ready for this?
I'm ready. Are you guys ready? We're ready.
Do you know how much salt water or produced water needs to be spilled before it's a reportable in the state of Texas?
Yes, I do. Why don't you tell them, though, why don't you tell these people that don't know?
It's a trick question, right? There isn't one.
That's the answer. I knew that.
So in West Texas, the guidelines, which good luck, right? Go and Google Texas statewide rule, produced water reportable spill. And if you get into the deepest bones of maybe it's still on the Railroad Commission's website, there is a guidance document from the late 90s for proposed reportable rules.
Late 90s?
It has never been finalized.
Okay.
And so if you're in West Texas, the guidance is about 250 barrels. And if you're in other parts of the state, I think it's as low as 25.
Okay.
So on the one hand, our regulators are saying we treat everyone fairly and equally. And then on the other, but we refuse to finalize anything. And
that way it kind of leaves a little room for
everything. And
favoritism.
You look at the rules and it's like, here's a very specific rule. Unless in the best interest and the regulators disagree.
It seems like the theme and the kind of the tone of a lot of people that I'm seeing on LinkedIn and Twitter. It seems that people do identify that there does need to be a change. It seems like there's a lot of things that people are frustrated about, that they believe that office does need to have some changes happen to it. So it's just kind of echoing what you're saying. It sounds like change is going to happen, just a question of what direction and how it's going to change.
Yeah, and if we don't fix it from internally,
someone else will.
The feds are going to come in.
And I honestly, I don't do politics and all that stuff. I don't.
Yeah.
But that's not what I want. I know if they come in there, just muck stuff up. Okay. Well, this is way beyond my scope. Raymond Elstraub Jr. Sarah, is there anything in the SWR 91 or the SWR 8 that you would push for more implementation of those rules from the RRC staff?
Yeah, well, we're getting technical on the numbers. I think that those are related to pollution and protection of groundwater.
Okay.
And here's the big thing. Right now, if you if you say you're a landowner and there's a well on your property that is leaking, and you can see it dripping, and you've got some asphaltenes, and it's nasty. You call, and if you call the Railroad Commission, they will send an inspector out. But if you don't ask for it to be a complaint, if you don't say I have a complaint, if you say I would like to request an inspection,
someone to come look at it, yeah,
there's a difference in how it is logged. So if you go and look at Railroad Commission public records and the number of complaints, and they brag every year, we had 450 complaints this year, and all of them were cleared, or we issued $40,000 in fines, yada yada.
But behind that, there's probably under the iceberg, there's probably requests.
Thousands of people calling and being like, hey, something doesn't look right. I'm not an oil and gas expert. Hey, can you guys go out and look? That's not a complaint. That's a request for inspection. It does not get logged the same way.
So shame on them for their ignorance of not knowing how to complain properly.
Right, because that's what
they didn't use the right verbiage.
Right. And so on a most basic level, that needs to be fixed, right? Like if someone calls in and says, I think that I have environmental damage, then it needs to be acknowledged for what it is. It's a complaint.
And move to that level of severity or importance.
Exactly. And you have it inspected. If there's any violations, they're noted. But here's the key. If there's no requirement for anyone to submit any sort of documentation to prove that you have met the regulatory requirements for cleaning up a spill.
Okay.
Right? So if it's, if your total petroleum hydrocarbons, TPH, is less than 1%, it's legal. So what they do is they'll take contaminated soil, they'll mix it up, and then they'll spread it across the pad site. They'll never check the soil. They don't ever test it, but it passes the sniff test, literally, right? Of, okay, this is about right. If a landowner complains, then the landowner, it goes out there. If there's nothing actively leaking or spewing, then the Railroad Commission says it looks like they're in compliance. They don't test the soil.
They don't test the soil, right?
They don't make them prove you've actually cleaned this up. So then the landowner has to go and pay a scientist to go
a third party to prove that something's going on.
Right.
Okay.
And maybe it's not right there, right? It's like a guessing game. It's like a game of what was the Battleship, right? Where you're Battleship. Like A5. And so you're looking at your property and you're like, well,
hopefully
I'm looking at a satellite.
You get it right.
Right. Here's where a spill has been. This looks dead. Let's go dig here.
I feel like I'm close to it, but that's not accurate.
Right. And oftentimes the scariest part is the worst of the worst contamination. You don't know at surface because it's old pits that have been closed for 40 years and the mesquites and stuff are growing over it. But as soon as you dig 10 feet in, it's black sludge again. And it's in your groundwater. I mean, it happened at the ranch to me this summer. So again, intellectual honesty of we need to actually make them prove that they're cleaning stuff up. And when you close out sites, there needs to be some accountability and checks.
That you actually did check to confirm that there's no spill or that there was a spill, whatever that is.
Right, you actually cleaned it up.
Contaminated,
you didn't just dig out the top 6 inches and dump fresh caliche on it, which is what a lot of them are doing.
Say we're good. Okay, so let's get moving on. Eric Allen said that's a great point, Sarah. It doesn't have to be them or us. Let's work on both black, gold, and green. Completely agree. Love that statement. Okay. Here's a good question from Justin Lippman out there, tuning in from I don't know where. What incentives could the RRC provide the E&Ps to make them better stewards of the land, such as the University Lands Environmental Stewardship Incentive Program, ESIP, of 2018? So what incentives could the RRC provide to E&Ps to make them better stewards of the land?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that there's all kinds of things we could do, right? So Louisiana, for example, this year passed legislation to try to address their orphan wells program, where if an operator essentially adopts an orphan well, they get severance tax relief for that production. The money in the beginning from, they go in, they recomplete it. Traditionally, no one wants to touch an orphan well, because it's a liability. Yeah. And so, okay, let's say we can be smart and say good operators that have a documented history of good operations, they can go adopt this well. The first amount of production that goes into a trust for decommissioning, right? So if it's going to cost $50,000 to plug that well, the first $50,000, and then the next $50,000 they get severance tax relief, and then the rest is all gravy, right? So I mean, yeah, there are ways to create incentives. There are ways to create incentives, but it's also working with
neighboring, states and find out what's working for you, what's not working.
Key, if you have no consequences, why would you ever have an incentive to go above and beyond? So at some point, you have to be like right now. I keep saying it, but the industry is about as afraid of the Railroad Commission as you and I are of the meter maid. It is a slight inconvenience.
Right. Okay.
And until it's like, oh wait, this might be the feds, essentially, right? Like,
well,
I'm worried.
That's the biggest concern that I think I have, and I think a lot of people out there. It's when people from out of state, and I grew up in Connecticut, so I really don't care. You know what I mean? But when you have people when you have federal governments justifying their jobs, coming in here and kind of making things more difficult for the people of Texas to operate.
Right.
Whether it's oil and gas, whether it's individuals, whatever that looks like. Right. So this is something that probably whether you like the word consequences or not, there needs to be some for people to respond to. If not, if we're not going to be told how to do it, someone else is going to tell us how to do it, make us do it that way. So, okay. So there's different ways. So
right. But yeah, perfect example. There is currently right now on the books, if an operator has any doubt as to whether or not its facilities is in compliance with environmental laws, an operator can go and hire an environmental consultant to perform an audit. And that says, here's everything that's wrong with your facilities. And if you fix them under current regulations, you are exempt from penalties.
Okay.
Why isn't anyone doing that? Because they're not issuing any penalties for the stuff that's not in compliance.
The meter maids are not swinging by that often, right?
Right.
So we got Ricardo Garcia saying, why run as a Republican if your views clearly are not conservative? Who am I voting for? What makes you different from Democrat Luke Warford?
Okay, well, one, I take issue with the fact that I'm not conservative because I care about our environment, right? I am a lifelong Republican. I believe in being fiscally conservative. Okay. And I'm probably more leaning on the libertarian of, I think the federal government should stay out of our personal lives. So yeah, if you go and you look at my social media, I'm pretty vocal on cannabis, and I'm pretty vocal that the government should stay out of my uterus and things like that. Yeah. But I am conservative, and I believe in personal property rights.
Personal choice.
Believe in personal choice. I believe in personal liberties, and I am tired of the government telling us how to live our lives.
I agree with that. Amen with that.
And the difference between Luke is a lifelong Dem. And I will tell you this, we had a well-controlled expert who is a Democrat who wanted to run against Luke, called the Dems just a few days before the qualifications, said, hey, I am qualified, I'm a Democrat, I want to run. And they said, no, Luke is the chosen baby.
They brought him in.
We promised this to him. Go look at his credentials. He worked for Hillary.
Yeah.
Nice guy. He doesn't know jack crap about the oil and gas industry.
No, or Texas, right?
So
there's a lot of differences. Look, you don't have to.
Again,
there's shades of gray on. There's. It's not black or white when it comes to your political party, your personal choice, my personal choice. But there's definitely shades of gray in both camps, whether it's Republican, Independent, Libertarian, Democrat. There's shades of gray.
Right.
Okay.
Well, and the big thing is, right, Wayne Christian, who's the incumbent, ran in 2016 on a pro-life platform for a statewide office in Texas because that's what the political pundits told him was necessary to win the election. You go and you look at his campaign website now, and he's talking about flaring, and he's talking about actual things that matter because we've raised the bar and required them. I have no other political aspirations. So you see nothing on my website about any of the issues other than what I will have jurisdiction over.
Okay. All right. I like that. And then Cody chimes in. He said, the area of sport. Why does it matter if it's Republican or Democrat? Just listen to your ideas and vote for if you agree. That's a great point. Okay. Daryl's coming in. Daryl Paul. So what are your thoughts and concerns considering the digital transformation of oil and gas? And thoughts of dark operations, essentially non-manned refineries, drilling, and other operations. All right, so digital transformation of oil and gas. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, you're seeing so much cool technology. You're seeing stuff that couldn't even imagine 3 years ago.
Right.
Surface from, and I'm not sure if it's whether it's the tech side of the industry, whether the pandemic slowed things down. We were allowed to shift our focus and not go back to business the way we were. But there is a huge surge of technology and digitalization in our industry currently.
Right. Yeah. So I think maybe it was 2017 was the first year that SPE had their innovation conference in Houston.
Yeah.
And I sat in there and listened to a bunch of, computer engineering nerds geek out on the data that was available and the things that we can do. And, we're in October 2022, we are going to have a national satellite detecting methane emissions.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Did you know that?
Yes, I knew that.
So the U.S. government, right, in conjunction, so all these guys that are like, we're not flaring anymore. Well, you may not be flaring. You're probably venting to surface. Let's be honest, right? So all that's going to be, we're about to have, again, technology is great in what it can do. But we also have to know limitations, right? But
Yes.
Right now, the fact that you've got broken pressure gauges and that on this well that's actively blowing out in Crane County, they haven't shut down nearby saltwater injection, and they haven't required all of the offset operators to have pressure gauges. If we wanted to actually figure out what was going on, we would be monitoring downhole pressure, reservoir pressure, not just surface pressure.
Okay.
And we're not even monitoring surface pressure. So, right, like again, intellectual honesty, I hate repeating that word, but I think that we are so far behind the 8 ball in our industry on boots on the ground technology that they're using these conferences and there's these people in very
to show that we're doing it without actually taking any action.
Right, we've got all these great things that no one wants to implement.
Okay, and also, I mean, when it comes to like the whole I remember I was talking to Ryan Keyes with Triple Crown, and they had some 6% methane. They flew a plane over to it, and they turned that into revenue. You know what I mean? So smart ESG, and I'm getting to smart ESG. Translates to bottom line. Mm-hmm. It does. All right. So, are the candidates attending the Railroad Commission open meetings? Are you attending? I can't answer for the other candidates.
Right. So there was one this morning that I did not get to attend
because she wants to answer questions for the people.
Yeah. But yes, I watched most of them.
Yep.
If you do, it's quite disheartening. They will have 300 things on the agenda, and they last 27 minutes because under the rules, the commissioners aren't allowed to talk to each other except in open meetings. But what that means is that at the open meetings, nothing is discussed. Everything happens in closed doors behind chiefs of staffs. So you've got assistants meeting. Like one commissioner will meet with the other commissioner's assistants. That's okay.
Okay.
And then they're supposed to, in public meetings where everyone can listen and participate, actually have debate and discussion. And they don't do that at all. Instead, it's a rubber stamp. They've got a script of who's going to say what on which agenda items, and everything's already predetermined.
So you're going to come. So tell me how you're going to come in and change that system they have right now for communications and having their open meetings.
I'm just going to start asking questions in the open meetings. They're like, actually, no, I'm not ready to move on to the next agenda item.
Okay. All right. So you're going to kind of just talk.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's see. See what else we got. All right, there's a lot of. Oh, this is a good question. Jared says, Laura, how you doing? Thanks for tuning in, by the way. Lawyer-client privilege with your clients if you're elected prior to election time. Okay, so your current clients are now, all right. What if your current/past clients that you represented end up with an environmental issue? Does your lawyer-client privilege prevent any action? That's a
you would have to not vote. It's a conflict.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So the conflict of interest.
And you would say, yeah, I can't participate in this vote.
Okay. All right.
But no, I mean, your current attorney-client privilege lasts forever, and I would never breach that confidence. And the only exception to that is if you know that they're breaking the law. And I have no reason to believe that my clients have ever broken the law. I have good clients.
You have the trust too. That's trust too. So again, we have another thing again for this debate. This debate that we're talking about.
Right.
It's going to be. I think it's going to be epic.
I do.
You know what I mean? I think.
If we can get them there.
So with a debate, do you need every person running?
I don't know if you saw last night, there was a governor debate that Abbott didn't show up to.
I didn't see that.
Yeah.
So you don't need everyone running to have the debate. You just need kind of, at least one other person in the room to have a debate.
Right. You say we offered it to all of the candidates, and this is who decided to take advantage.
And you're ready to jump in and have a debate.
Oh yeah.
Okay. All right. So what other questions so from these questions that I'm asking you, and obviously it seems like there's a lot of questions on conflict of interest, on where you stand as a Republican, and all that fun stuff. I mean, what kind of feedback do you kind of or themes that you're hearing from the landowners, or what kind of other like main topics that you're hearing from, I guess, the groups that you're kind of engaging in conversations with that maybe that wasn't brought up during this interview right now that you'd like to bring up?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, look, the grid, this is what I'm getting that people are concerned about.
Okay.
They're concerned about winterization in the grid.
Okay.
They're concerned about the earthquakes, and they're concerned about their jobs and their livelihoods.
Right.
And my position is that the only thing that will disturb the oil and gas industry and our livelihoods is if we don't actually start taking meaningful steps to figure out these other issues and fix them. And if we do it right, we will create better paying jobs, longer, right? We're here to stay. But that means calling out the bad actors and standing up for what's right.
It also gives you a little ammunition too when someone does chime in and speaks negatively about the oil and gas industry. You kind of gives you a little ammunition too to be like, sit down. This is what's changed. This is what's happening, right? And I think that's something that we're all dealing with right now.
And look, none of us. If you had told me a year ago that I would be waging a social media campaign against one of the largest oil and gas operators and running for
Right.
statewide elected office, I would have said you were absolutely batshit crazy.
Right.
Right. I think I feel like I'm here for a reason, as cheesy as that sounds.
That's not everything have purpose.
People, but why did I move into a pool house in the middle of the desert a week before this blowout started? Why, you know what I mean? Like there's almost divine intervention.
There's certain things that are happening that are kind of aligning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it feels like I have a responsibility to lovingly communicate to the oil field family. I believed too. And I am so incredibly disappointed with how very important people have been handling things in closed door meetings. And it's sad.
And you're just enough is enough.
Mm-hmm.
Something has to be done. So that's kind of what kind of propelled you to kind of launch this campaign.
Yep.
So Daryl asked again, in these things with conflicts of interest with maybe previous clients or what that looks like, how does that work? How does that non-vote work in a 3-person panel?
I don't know. Okay, so I do know that other commissioners have, not vote with,
Non-votes,
abstained.
whatever,
Yeah. From, I don't know. I'll need to figure it out. But
what I dig about this is you're saying, what kind of like this? You're saying that change needs to be done. You're seeing it firsthand, whether it's your property or whether it's the people you're talking to, or whether what's going on right now. Not only are you seeing that, you're also saying, yeah, I don't know, but I'm going to find out.
I don't have all the answers.
I think if someone says they have all the answers, they're probably pretty good BSers in my opinion. So we have that's just this is just something from a Neil about a satellite image on some methane. I'm just leaving that up for everyone to read.
Oh,
if
on
you
my
haven't read that.
methane. Yeah, he's talking about the satellite.
Yeah. So how's this been for? I mean, on a personal side, how's it been for you and your family, your little one?
Yeah, so she's back in Louisiana with her dad most of the time, and kind of out of the drama craziness of it. But she, I talk to her every day, and I tell her what's going on. She spent a lot of time out here this summer, and when a 7-year-old is like, "Mom, why don't they have to do? Why don't they? I have to clean up my mess. Why don't they have to clean up their mess?"
Right.
If a 7-year-old gets it, it's not that hard. So, personally, it's challenging being away from my family.
Yeah.
But again, I feel convicted that I'm the unicorn that can do this, right? I happen to be positioned in. If I wasn't an insider in the industry, it would never work. But I have enough people that have 13 years of dealing with me that know who I truly am and what I truly believe, that are like, well, if Sarah's telling me this, and they do a little bit of investigation, they're like, okay, I get it.
So how can people kind of find out more about you, kind of your platform, and kind of what you stand for and stuff? So first off, how can people your website? Okay, so first your website. I like to hear social media platforms you're on, so people can kind of go in and do their own research and kind of learn more about you. And yeah, start with those. And I'll think of the 30.
So my website is Sarah, SARAH, the number 4, RRC.com.
All right.
And then I'd say the best way, if you really want to do a deep dive into me, professionally, LinkedIn.
Okay.
Right? So I've been very active on LinkedIn for 4 or 5 years.
Right.
And you can see all my old posts. You can see the insurance coverage issues I talk about. You can see the drill baby drill posts I used to make of, really standing up for our industry. And that'll give people kind of an idea of my professional background.
Right.
And then personally right now, TikTok. I mean, it's crazy.
You can find, you did a live one 2 days ago in front of that blowout right there. And people were chiming in, asking questions. And it was just kind of what we're doing right now, off the cuff. Like, if you have a question, chime in. I'm here for X amount of time. So pretty much they can choose to engage with you and pick your brain on a certain topic.
I'm on Twitter. I have a Facebook account that I hadn't,
anyway,
so, right?
I'm not even going to go down that path. No one does. All right. Keith Stelter said, what changes would you bring to encourage more development? Development
of oil and gas?
Development of, Keith, if you're tuning in, chime in right now. I'm not sure. Development of. Okay, well, Keith, we're going to get back to you, buddy. All right. Ricardo Garcia, what's the biggest change you would want to see if elected?
I would want to have the Railroad Commission be a transparent agency that includes all stakeholders into the conversation, where you can actually have some safety in talking about problems, and a place where you come up with solutions, not getting plaintiffs' attorneys and not villainizing. And I think we have a lot to learn from each other.
So you're not worried about going there and not making friends?
Oh no,
you know what I mean?
I'm confident that as soon as I get elected, all of a sudden everyone that's like, Rah! Is suddenly gonna be like, well, actually.
I mean, you kind of have to if someone's has a voice in the room. You kind of have to.
And I already have that, right? Like, I already have a silent backing of thousands of industry people, great clients who are doing the right thing.
And then I also saw a clip that you did where you actually went in front of the about your property too. You were in front of the Texas Railroad Commission as well.
Yeah.
So it's not one of those things you're afraid to be vocal.
Right. And one thing I would love to do is have some sort of industry panel, like volunteer. There's all these well control guys. There's all these retired geologists and petroleum engineers that have a ton of real life experience. Like, let's let them participate.
Yes.
Let's be like, hey, instead of calling a overwhelmed 20-something-year-old engineer for the state in Midland right here, who's trying to have conversations of real-time well control issues in the field and understand them, and let's have a panel of people that can actually help.
Well, that's the thing. In our industry, whether it's past 2 years, past 3 years, there's been a lot of great people that have either retired or moved on and all this stuff that are very, very knowledgeable. And that's not something that you can kind of, learn in school or in a book or something like that. That takes years. So having that experience around you, I bet that's that'll be beneficial. So Keith chimes in. He says, yes, oil and gas. Pretty much how to make it more attractive to drill in Texas.
I don't think it needs to be more attractive.
Can't be perfect now, is it?
No, I think we have all the incentives we need for people to be able to drill. We don't need to incentivize new drilling. We need to incentivize proper drilling.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's a good point. Let's see if anything.
Are there any TikTok ones?
Are there any TikTok questions? All right. So she's also streaming this on TikTok. How will mitigation and cleanup standards be upheld, and what does the industry have to lose? How will they be upheld? What does the industry have to lose?
Good question. I think the industry has to lose some profits if they don't clean up their messes. And what I hope to do is incentivize people who do a good job and do clean up. And I think we are at an unstoppable train of accountability. And if it's not me, it will be someone else that is not friendly to this industry.
Yes, and that's kind of I think with all eyes on the oil and gas, the dirty, gross fossil fuel industry. We're the villains right now, and I think there's definitely vultures on the sidelines waiting to come in and completely change our industry. Not for the good, for the worse. What? Okay. Keith says, well, then why are the majors leaving and selling their stakes?
Because you ready?
Oof. Okay.
Great question.
Yeah, great question, Keith.
Because of pressure from Wall Street and the public to get rid of dirty oil.
Okay.
But they're not. Instead, they're taking their asset retirement obligations, which are a lot of our Permian assets, Central Basin Platform, historical, traditional, and they are assigning them to smaller operators, and they are pawning off their plugging responsibilities and their cleanup obligations. Ooh. So they're not getting out of fossil fuels at all. They just
act like they are.
They're getting rid of their liabilities in exchange. Perfect example. On my ranch, Chevron takes over deep drilling rights in other places in exchange for transferring existing assets. There was no money exchanged. It was like I take your deep drilling rights in 2020 when you don't have the capital to actually, go and maintain your leases. So you give us those leases and we'll give you 47 pages of leases that have been active since 1940s that we have not plugged out properly. Good luck.
Okay.
And that's
great
what's happening.
Question, Keith. Great question. See, that's not a lot of people don't know that. Okay. Again, back to kind of 2022. In the building on the digitalization of the oil and gas industry, and this is from Kale House. Do you have any plans to update the Railroad Commission's website, query functions, and make data more easily accessible? Enverus has left a great model of what needs to happen with the RRC website.
Yeah, I have a lot of questions on that. I think maybe before we went live, we were talking about, I think that the Railroad Commission has a budget of over $10 million a year. That's several years old.
Yeah.
They had like a $50 million chunk of budget to go and modernize all of the old records.
I haven't done it.
Oh, I'd like to see that.
But didn't that, what was his name, Joshua Polar? Didn't he have to dig through microfiche to find that?
We have a boots on the ground researcher. And if you've never researched at the archives,
I haven't.
This is what happened, right? So I went down to Austin to go look through old stuff when this happened months ago.
Okay.
And I'm fumbling, right? Looking through. It was flashback to middle school when I had to go to the old school.
The Dewey Decimal System.
Yes, basically.
Oh, yeah.
And so there are a handful of professional researchers that all they do is research for people at the Railroad Commission.
Okay.
And so one of those sweet little ladies came over and was like, here's my card. You look like you could use some help. This is what I do. And so I call her up and I'm like, hey, I need everything you can find on this section, right? Like we whittle down and she goes to town and she knows all the nooks and crannies. But if you don't have someone like that, yeah, good luck. You go and plug that lease number into the Railroad Commission website and it comes up with 200 pages and there's probably 2,500 pages of relevant information out there that's not included.
Well, the fact that, I mean, again, I'm just going off of what LinkedIn and Twitter and all that stuff, but the fact that it took Landman, was his name, Joshua Polar, right?
Yeah, it took us 9 days.
But the fact that the Railroad Commission didn't even take care of that, the fact that it had to be independent,
and maybe they were behind the hat, right? Maybe. Who knows what conversation?
But when it came to surface, I'm saying it was the people that brought it to surface.
For sure.
It wasn't the commission.
No, and the commission wasn't going to respond, right? In the beginning, we get a call from the landowner that's like, hey, I've got this water well exploding on my property. The Railroad Commission tells me they're not going to help. So we come over, I start filming it, and I'm like, absolutely not. That's a whole nother discussion about P13 wells and pawning these things off on landowners. Right. But even assuming this was a water well, we have no natural artesian water out there. It's not spewing 100 feet in the air because of a natural condition within that aquifer. It has to be tied to oil and gas. And again, intellectual honesty. I start jumping up and down, and then the Railroad Commission's like, okay, well, we'll take over. And then a day later, there's a no-fly zone.
Yes.
Because I'm recording it and telling people about it.
And there are only, 18?
There's 8 right now in the entire country.
In the entire country. Okay. But I think the digitalization of records and providing, transparency to people, I mean, regardless who gets to see, that's I mean, you have to You can't be working with the 1990 system in 2022.
No, and if we don't have them at the Railroad Commission, we need to get them from operators. And there needs to be a comprehensive database based on API numbers of everything that is non-proprietary that is related to that wellbore.
Right.
Why are we only keeping mechanical integrity tests for a year? And why is it that anyone who's ever been in the industry, you can spin a mechanical integrity test card. For those that don't know, it's a card. It's round, and you put it on the machine, and you set it, and you make sure that it holds pressure, that the well is capable of holding pressure. Well, there's a little pin, right? And so if you keep if you do it the way it's supposed to do it, the pin, as the wheel turns over time, stays consistent, and you can see that your pressure is holding.
Okay.
You can also put the pin on there, and if you're lying, spin the card and make it look like you held pressure.
Okay.
And if you fail 9 and you pass your 10th, you only have to submit your 10th. But why don't we have records of every mechanical integrity test that's performed on wells?
Right. Okay. No. Probably because it's going to fall in that big archive section.
Right. Well, and the good guys, right? The good guys go in, they fail a mechanical integrity test, and they figure out why. The shady ones go in, spin it, and say, who cares if we're leaking into our groundwater? It's worthless desert. And
no one lives out there.
No, yeah.
So pretty much, another thing that you're going to do, you're talking about just kind of updating the whether it's the website, whether it's the data, whether it's the information on these wells. You're going to bring it to the 21st century, pretty much.
Yes, that's my goal.
All right, so we have Daryl coming in. And by the way, I love the participation here, and I appreciate everyone's kind of keeping this civil. That's what I'm digging. So Daryl Polson says, how do you see the growth of hydrogen? And how do you see the Railroad Commission helping in that transition? Is that essential since Saudi is investing $700 billion to become a supplier? This is essential since Saudi. Okay, so how do you see the growth of hydrogen?
Yeah, like the rainbow of hydrogen, right? So if you listen to hydrogen people talk, they're like, oh, well, we got green hydrogen and blue hydrogen and all these, and way outside of my technical expertise. Again, I think we have significant opportunities to use hydrogen, and we just need to give it the credit that it's due and give it a fair place at the table and let those that have that knowledge come in and participate in those discussions. So again, we can have a comprehensive approach.
So bring people in the room that live it.
Yeah, so you can co-locate, right? My understanding, I think it's blue or green hydrogen, right? That's related to natural gas. You need natural gas to make it. And so you're still burning natural gas to generate the hydrogen. Where can you co-locate facilities, right? Where can you have, I've been saying this, you go back on my LinkedIn, I've been saying we could grow hemp we could have phytoremediation next to, we could, if we really want to be crazy, right? There's all kinds of opportunities.
But it makes sense.
It makes sense. It's just, again, getting people that, besides the same old people, same old voices in the room, to come up with
not only that, just even approach a problem differently.
Right.
Recognize
there is a problem first. That's what is the first step of recovery is acceptance.
I do have a problem.
Yes, we have a problem.
So Keith again is asking, so how do you incentivize them to stay and do it correctly?
I beat them if they don't.
Okay. All right. So physical violence. Dig it. All right. Ricardo Garcia says, is the problem of P&A wells, plug and abandonment wells, blowing out an issue with the procedure in abandoning wells, or just negligence in the oil company?
Both.
Okay.
I think both. I think, again, we have people that, let's think about what was happening over time, right? So in the 1940s, when we're drilling a lot of these wells, World War II's ending, guys are coming back. We've got shortages of steel and so when they abandoned wells during World War II specifically, they were pulling all the casing that they could get for the war efforts, right? Yep. And no one ever imagined that in the middle of nowhere, 100 years from then, we would be thinking of carbon capture, using like tertiary recovery in CO2, or that we would be, right? So that wasn't negligence. Now, it was lazy maybe, or, on some aspects they didn't put cement.
No foresight, but you're not thinking 70 years in the future.
Right. So now there is absolutely no excuse to not cement a well all the way up,
Okay.
and to confirm it with a cement bond law.
Okay.
Right? But cement's cheap. But people don't do it because they don't have to under the regs. So if you're just doing the bare minimum to pass regulations and you know that that's insufficient, that is absolutely negligent, and I absolutely want to hold those people accountable.
I get that. Okay.
Because we have an obligation to do better. And I expect the engineers that I work with, they know when something's insufficient. And they're like, hey, the rule says this, but we don't think. And that's the thing that's so crazy. I've got guys that want to do the right thing that are trying to use exotic cements or, trying to tackle some really technical problems.
Yeah.
And the regulators either don't understand it or they have interests that are against that. And so they say no. They are actively impeding the use of things that are better.
Okay. That's great to hear. Should land companies have to be bonded and insured against lifelong environmental damage? I'm gonna leave that to you.
Look, I think we have a problem with our bonding system, right? Where you can own thousands of well bores and the maximum amount that you're required to have on bond is $250,000. I think the biggest evidence of failure is the fact that of the Railroad Commission's approximately $100 million budget per year, half of that is currently going to plugging orphaned wells. So I give you $100 million, 50 of that is going to do the work of the people you are charged with regulating who didn't do the work.
Okay. Yeah. No, that makes
And why am I going to charge you? Why am I going to trust you, the regulators, who weren't even smart enough to figure out how to make the guys that were supposed to do it? Why am I going to trust you with actually doing it? You're not going to do it any better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So.
Well, this is I want to actually move on to this point. Amanda McKittrick. This is regarding the nuclear waste. Yeah. Hi, Sarah. Are you aware of the proposed storage of nuclear waste? And this is something I just saw probably about the past 2-3 days. A lot of people started talking about this. Hi, Sarah. Are you aware of the proposed storage of nuclear waste on surface in Andrews County? Is this something that is on your radar? Let me just read it, and you can kind of break it down or speak to this, because I know this is on a lot of people, especially in this area, on their minds right now. Is this something that is on your radar, and would you be willing to use your platform to protect land from this type of activity in the Permian Basin?
Yeah, absolutely. So
can you explain kind of what's going on with this and kind of what you know, and kind of then speak to kind of the willing to use your platform to protect land from the Permian Basin?
Right. So I'm not an expert on this.
Right.
As a preface, my understanding is that there has been a proposal that there is a company who owns land in Andrews County, a private entity that wants to use their land as a nuclear waste disposal facility.
Site. Right.
Okay. My understanding is that the Railroad Commission has absolutely no jurisdiction over that it is a legislative, the Railroad Commission has jurisdiction over oil and gas and then surface and land mining.
Okay.
But they're not mining for uranium. If they were mining for uranium, the Railroad Commission would have jurisdiction over that.
Okay.
But they are going to store waste. Okay. So if I'm wrong on that, I please somebody point me in the right direction, and I will go read up on this.
Well, it's the internet. They will.
Right.
Trust me. If you're wrong, you're gonna know.
Good.
Right.
So if I'm wrong on that, but my position is everyone is always not in my backyard, right? But we have earthquakes right now near Andrews. This is near Gardendale and all this stuff that's going on.
Okay.
It's probably not just from a basic, layman's common sense. If the ground's shaking, I probably shouldn't put toxic waste that has to be maintained.
Yeah, nuclear toxic waste
in a place that's shaking. That's just fundamentally one. Two, I think neighbors. One of the other problems is neighbors need to have a say. They need to be educated, and then they need to be heard.
They need to know what's going on.
To know what's happening with their property, and what other people are doing is impacting their property. And so, although I firmly believe in personal property rights and the ability to do with what you have, I also firmly believe that you can't do something that's going to hurt others.
The environment and the environment and others. Right. Okay.
And so I hope that answers the question.
So what could be done about that? I mean, I know it doesn't fall in the jurisdiction of railroad But that's a big issue right now with a lot of people in West Texas.
Yeah, I mean, if I was a railroad commissioner right now, what I would be saying is, I don't think we should be having toxic waste. We can't even figure out our earthquakes. That's exactly what I would say. And you're not going to put something on top of ground that's shaking.
Right.
That needs to be
especially
contained.
this constant too.
That's it.
Okay.
Bottom line.
And Daryl's just chiming in. The WIP is in Lee County, New Mexico. I wonder if it's temp storage, waiting storage in New Mexico.
The WIP.
I don't know.
I don't know if I'm blanking on. I know that if we're talking about New Mexico, I know that maybe 50 or 60 years ago, somebody thought it would be a good idea to put a nuclear detonation in the bottom to try to frack, basically. And they created a very large round dead space in the middle of the desert where nothing will ever grow because of radioactive exposure.
Yeah.
But we also have, radioactive brine spewing from these wells right now that no one wants to talk about.
So it seems like, I mean, there's a lot of questions right now. Obviously, there's a lot of tangents we can go on. There's a lot of stuff. So let's kind of summarize, wrap it up, unless there's other questions, because I kind of feel like there's a lot of questions like in the which is fun, which is what this is all about.
I invite people to reach out to me after this is over and they want to talk about something. I am happy to have discussions.
So let's kind of summarize kind of where you're at right now, what you're focused on. Has there anything that's been off your radar that you haven't known until you started the campaign process and talking to people and all that stuff, and you realize, oh wow, this is something I've never heard about. Is this something big deal?
No, I think that has, I kind of did it in reverse, right? It was all of those things I was learning about is the reason that I ran.
Okay. That was the motivator behind it.
Yeah. And so, no, everywhere I look, it's just more confirmation. And the people that I talk to that are insiders and have been there before and blazed trails have said, be careful. You're pissing off people, but keep going. We need you.
And you're fine with pissing people off.
I am.
Okay. I guess that's part of being a lawyer.
Right. I'm used to being the bad guy.
Yeah.
As a lawyer.
I don't know how you do. I don't know how lawyers do that, but I get like anxiety if I don't think someone lies. It's just me though. That's my low self-esteem out there. So that's how I deal with things. Anyway, I'm not even responding to this dude. So let's kind of let's summarize this. And I want to see if anyone has any questions for Sarah out there, kind of wants to kind of go in the weeds with a subject that you're concerned about. We're kind of open this up for lunch, so we kind of have to clear this up. So obviously you can reach out. So you want to provide your email address to me so I can kind of put it up here?
Yeah, so if they go to sarah4rrc.com, there's a form. I don't want to put it out there to start getting spam because so far I haven't been getting any spam. So if you go to the website, there is a form you can fill out.
Sarah4rrc.com. All right. So if you go to this website.
Yeah.
Oh man, come on.
Do you have any questions? I'm running for railroad commissioner.
Are you?
I am.
What's your name?
My name is Sarah Stogner.
Okay. Jason Law.
Nice to meet you.
Meet you.
Yeah.
So we got.
Yeah.
How's it going? JP
Sarah
Warner.
Stogner. Nice
How are
to
you?
meet
How
you.
do you feel about seismic?
Seismic. I think we have.
So we're getting some live questions right
Yeah.
now in Midland Country Club from the bar area. What's the question? Seismic?
Yeah, I think we have a water management problem. I think.
So we own a water management company.
See.
All right. Let's do this.
Let me close out. I will.
We're gonna
talk to
close
you.
out the water bridge. Okay. All right. I'm digging that. So, all right. So pretty much, so what we're doing right now, if you have any questions for Sarah, we kind of want to get in the weeds a little bit about an area of concern, or kind of want to pick her brain a little bit more about what changes she's proposing to take to the Texas Railroad Commissioner position. You can find her on that website that I just kind of posted right here. And feel free to reach out and ask her a question like that. Connect with her on LinkedIn. Connect with her on TikTok, on Twitter. And is there anything else that you kind of want to summarize for the group out there listening?
If you're not registered to vote, you register to vote in Texas by January 31st.
Okay.
The primary is on March 1st.
March 1st.
Early voting starts February 14th.
Okay.
And my request is just go vote. You don't have to vote for me, but go vote.
So you're just all about change.
I am.
There needs to be change right now. Okay. All right. Well, Sarah, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for
Thanks.
hosting this, and I wish you luck on the campaign trail. I wish you safety. I wish you luck, and I guess just keep fighting the fight.
Thanks.
That's all I got to say.
Thanks for having
So,
me.
all right, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in. And Sarah, thank you again for your time. And we hope everyone has a great day and all that. So thanks so much. Thanks everyone for your questions and all that. And we'll talk to you soon.